Welcome to Context 101. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. Imagine waking up to find the global economy's foundations cracking, the rules of money and power shifting beneath our feet. For decades, oil was king and the US dollar its currency, making America the heavyweight of global finance. But now, in the Middle East and Asia, a seismic shift is underway. Saudi Arabia and Qatar, once US allies and energy titans, are selling oil for Chinese yuan and backing BRICS, a group challenging the Western-led order. This isn't just a business move, it's a redrawing of the world's power map, with consequences for everything from gas prices to global stability. To truly understand the dramatic changes happening in the global order, we need to look at BRICS, a powerful bloc that started with Brazil, Russia, India, and China, and later welcomed South Africa into its ranks. These 5 countries, each with their own unique histories and ambitions, came together to form a group that would soon challenge the status quo of international politics and economics. Originally, BRICS was just a forum for discussion, a place where emerging economies could share ideas and voice their concerns. But over time, it has evolved into something much more significant. Today, BRICS is actively working to create a multipolar world, one where power and influence are shared more equally, and where the dominance of the US and its allies is openly challenged, especially in the financial arena. For years, BRICS members have felt frustrated by a global system that seems to favor the US dollar and Western interests. Decisions made by institutions like the IMF and World Bank often reflect the priorities of wealthy Western nations, leaving emerging economies with little say. In response, BRICS countries have steadily expanded their influence, seeking to rewrite the rules of global finance and trade. In a bold move in 2023, BRICS extended invitations to Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Iran, and Ethiopia. This expansion marked a turning point, transforming BRICS from a group of 5 into a much larger coalition. With these new members, BRICS has become a true geopolitical heavyweight, representing a diverse range of cultures, economies, and strategic interests. The expanded BRICS bloc now controls a staggering share of the world's population, economic output, and natural resources. Together, these nations account for over 40% of the global population and a significant portion of global GDP. They also play a crucial role in energy markets, with several members being major oil and gas producers, giving them even more leverage on the world stage. One of the group's main goals is to build a genuine alternative to the Western-dominated system. By reducing their dependence on the US dollar and encouraging trade in their own local currencies, BRICS countries hope to protect themselves from external shocks and sanctions, while also strengthening their own economies and fostering closer ties with each other. To support this vision, institutions like the New Development Bank have been established. Unlike traditional lenders, the NDB is lending in non-dollar currencies, providing much-needed funding for infrastructure and development projects across member countries, and helping to bypass the old financial order that has dominated for decades. BRICS is no longer just a club of emerging economies, it's rapidly becoming a force that is actively reshaping the landscape of global finance, trade, and diplomacy. As the world watches, the influence of BRICS is only set to grow. For half a century, the petrodollar system was the invisible engine powering the global economy. It was a simple but powerful arrangement. Oil, the world's most vital commodity, would be traded exclusively in US dollars. This single decision transformed the dollar from just another currency into the beating heart of international finance, giving America unprecedented influence over the world's money flows. Every barrel of oil sold meant more demand for dollars, cementing America's financial dominance and making the dollar the world's reserve currency. Countries everywhere needed dollars to buy oil, so they stockpiled them, invested in US assets, and tied their economies to the fate of the greenback. This all began in the turbulent 1970s, when the US struck a historic deal with Saudi Arabia. The arrangement was clear: Saudi oil would be sold only in dollars, and in return, the US would provide military protection and invest in the kingdom's security. Saudi Arabia in turn would recycle its oil profits by buying US bonds, fueling America's economic engine. Soon the rest of OPEC followed suit, making the dollar the lifeblood of global trade. Oil-rich nations, from the Middle East to South America, priced their crude in dollars, ensuring that the US currency remained strong and indispensable. the benefits for the US were enormous. America could borrow cheaply, run massive trade deficits without fear of collapse, and wield the power to sanction rivals by cutting off their access to dollars. The world's demand for dollars allowed the US to print money and export inflation, while still enjoying a high standard of living. But this dominance came at a cost. Around the world, resentment simmered as countries chafed under a system that gave America so much control over their economies. For sanctioned countries like Iran and Russia, the dollar became a weapon of economic warfare. Rising powers such as China saw the danger in relying on a rival's currency and began searching for ways to reduce their dependence on the dollar. Even America's closest allies found the system restrictive, as it limited their financial independence and exposed them to US policy decisions. Over time, this discontent grew. Today, Saudi Arabia and Qatar are making bold moves, exploring oil deals in other currencies and signaling a shift away from the dollar's dominance. The petrodollar's once iron grip is loosening. The world is actively searching for alternatives, from the Chinese yuan to digital currencies. And the old order is being challenged like never before. Ironically, the very system that gave the US so much power is now exposing its greatest vulnerabilities. As the world moves away from the dollar, America faces new risks and uncertainties. The stage is set for a new era in global finance, one where the rules are being rewritten and the future of money is up for grabs. Every historic shift has a tipping point, a moment when the world as we know it changes course, often in ways that are only clear in hindsight. These moments are rarely anticipated, but when they arrive, they send shockwaves through the global order, forcing nations to reconsider their alliances, their strategies, and even their sense of security. For the Gulf states, that tipping point came in July 2025. An unexpected Israeli strike on Qatari soil sent tremors across the region, catching governments and citizens alike off guard. The attack was not just a military event, it was a psychological blow, a stark reminder of the region's vulnerability and the unpredictability of global politics. The United States, which for decades had been the Gulf's steadfast security guarantor, responded with a level of caution that surprised many. Instead of a show of force, there were measured statements, diplomatic overtures, and a visible reluctance to escalate. The world watched as American leaders weighed their options, but for many in the Gulf, the message was clear: the old certainties were gone. In the capitals of Doha and Riyadh, this moment landed like a thunderclap. Leaders who had long relied on American protection suddenly found themselves questioning the very foundation of their security. The alliance with the US, once seen as unbreakable, now appeared fragile, subject to shifting priorities and political calculations far from the Gulf. The muted US response didn't just disappoint, it fundamentally altered the calculus of trust. Headlines blared about fractured alliances, and behind closed doors, Gulf leaders began to reassess their future. The sense of betrayal was palpable, accelerating a pivot that had already begun in whispers and backroom meetings. In the aftermath, Gulf nations wasted no time. They reached out to new partners, most notably China, seeking not just economic cooperation but a new kind of partnership, one that promised investment, technology, and security without the political strings that often came with Western alliances. The shift was subtle at first, but soon became unmistakable. The attack on Qatar became the spark that ignited a broader transformation. If the United States could no longer be counted on to guarantee their safety, Gulf leaders asked themselves, why should they continue to support the dollar's dominance in global finance? Investors grew anxious, and markets began to reflect the uncertainty rippling through the region. The decision to move away from the dollar was no longer just an economic calculation. It became a matter of sovereignty, of survival. For the Gulf states, diversifying their alliances and their currencies was now essential to protect their interests in an increasingly unpredictable world. With the fuse lit, the world watched as a new order began to take shape, one where BRICS nations, not the West, would increasingly set the rules and define the future. The era of unquestioned Western dominance was over, and a new chapter in global power had begun. With trust in the US shaken, Saudi Arabia and Qatar acted fast. In September 2025, they announced oil and gas deals with China would be settled in Yuan, a direct challenge to the petrodollar. For Qatar, this expanded on earlier Yuan-based LNG deals. For Saudi Arabia, it was a historic first. Both nations threw their support behind BRICS, with Saudi Arabia taking an active role and Qatar accelerating its application. This wasn't a total abandonment of the dollar, but a clear first step. Reports surfaced of discounts for buyers using non-dollar currencies. The message, the petrodollar monopoly was over, and a new era in global finance had begun. The Gulf's shift to the yuan is more than symbolic, it's backed by numbers. By early 2025, yuan-denominated oil contracts made up 24% of Brent crude trading, showing momentum away from the dollar. The expanded BRICS bloc now controls nearly half the world's oil output, giving it leverage to push the petro-yuan. The dollar remains dominant, still making up 59% of global reserves, but the yuan's share is rising. The BRICS New Development Bank aims for 30% of its lending in local currencies by year's end. Major projects, like the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline, are being financed outside the dollar system. The trend is clear. A parallel economic system is emerging. The world is no longer running on a single currency. This global power shift isn't just for politicians, it hits home. The dollar's strength has kept imports cheap and borrowing costs low for Americans. If demand for the dollar drops, imports get pricier and interest rates rise, raising the cost of living. For BRICS nations, trading in local currencies means less dependence on the dollar and more economic independence. Egypt's yuan deals with China, for example, offer relief from dollar shortages. But the transition brings volatility. Oil prices swing, and investors flock to gold for safety. Instability in currency markets can impact savings and investments worldwide. The new era of competing currencies will affect wallets everywhere. Experts agree, we're witnessing a pivotal moment in history. Gulf states are asserting sovereignty, not just shifting currencies. BRICS isn't about replacing one power with another, it's about a balanced multi-currency world. US sanctions have pushed countries to build alternatives, accelerating the trend. The Trump administration's tough stance on BRICS may only unify the bloc further. The old assumptions of US dominance are fading. The world is now multipolar, and America must adapt or risk being left behind. The next moves will shape the global order for decades. As 2026 begins, the great power shift is undeniable. The world is moving from US dollar dominance to a multipolar system, with BRICS and the petro-yuan rising. The petrodollar's monopoly is broken, and global finance is more competitive than ever. This change was triggered by a crisis of trust and a desire for sovereignty. For the US, it's a call to adapt. For others, it's a chance for independence. And for all, it brings new risks and opportunities. The economic ripples will touch everyone, everywhere. The tectonic plates of global power are shifting. Pay attention, because the new world is already here.